Hello and welcome to the Embroidered Elephant Podcast. My name is Kim and this is episode 18, I think. Thank you for joining me. Today I am going to be talking about all of the crochet projects that I have finished throughout December and maybe one or two from the end of November. If you are subscribed to my channel, you might have seen that I released a lot of videos throughout December. So I actually released one video every weekday throughout December and a bonus one at the start of the month to bring December in. So some of these projects have already been talked about. However, most of them haven't. They may have appeared briefly, but not in a big discussion. There are quite a lot to get through. I have been very busy this month with crocheting. Again, I think one of the reasons I had so much time to crochet is because I was very aware that there was going to be one video released every day. So where maybe I didn't have as much content or I was quite focused on getting a certain project finished, I just wanted to bash it out and get it done. Throughout this month, now that it has calmed down a bit, just to say, I think I've said this a few times, I really enjoy doing a video every day throughout December. It's really nice, it's a really good challenge. It does mean that I'm very busy and I spend a lot of time sort of thinking of ideas. Recording and editing takes a long time as well. Sometimes it's more interesting to record a video than to edit it, but obviously you need both. Otherwise you end up with a backlog of videos, which I do also have as well. So throughout this month it will be probably a little bit calmer for me. One of my main projects is going to be, business-wise, one of my main projects is going to be to tidy up my room. I have some good ideas on how I want to organise this room. So for example, I got some feedback that the background could be clearer so that it's less distracting and it's easier to focus on what I'm talking about. So that is one project I am going to be doing. I am also going to be tidying the mess that I've got next to my desk at the moment, which is just lots of boxes that I'm keeping for various things. I have got some yarn that I need to put back into the cupboard from December. I've got a couple of late Christmas presents I need to finish that the recipient won't get them until March anyway, so there's no rush on that. And there is also a big box of things to put online. I will be putting the stock that I didn't sell at markets and anything sort of a little bit miscellaneous on Vinted so that it's not in my office and it's just a little bit clearer for the new year. As well as that, I've got my desk to tidy up, which is also a bit of a mess. I'm reluctant to show you because it's a little bit embarrassing just how quickly everything adds up. So yes, that will be one of my plans, is to tidy the room up so that it's usable and it doesn't feel as much of a stress coming in here as it currently does. I have to obstacle course over various things. In my defence, some of the things that I have had to sort of jump over to get to the desk are things that I will be showing you. So once I've shown you, they can sort of come out of the room and give me a bit of breathing space. But yeah, so that's one of my plans for January. I will also be making one video per week. I have got a couple that are pre-recorded, so you may see some of these projects in a bit more detail once I release the video, probably later this month. And I will also be trying to finish a project or a couple of projects every month that are wearables, hopefully. So one of the videos that I did release in December, I think it was the 30th of December, was the projects that I wanted to complete in 2025. So there are some sewing projects and there are quite a few crochet projects as well. I can't remember off the top of my head how many there are. I think it's about 27, but that may be a lie. That seems quite high, but I also put a lot of projects on my list. So, and one of the themes for this year, I've got two themes, I guess. The first one is to have more wearables. So there are certain garments that I would like to sew ready to go away to Italy at the start of this year. And there are some crochet projects that I would like to finish again to go to Italy. And the other theme is Toft toys. So I got some money from my grandparents and I spent it during a Toft sale, and I got quite a few kits. So some of these will be planned for nearer the end of the year, as again I've mentioned in my previous video. And some of these I would like to get done sort of as and when, but my main focus will be to have more wearables that I've made. I love the idea of having a more me-made wardrobe, so things that fit me better in patterns that I love and that are quite flattering as well. Along with that, I am also going to have a focus on fixing clothes. So there are quite a lot of clothes that have holes in or are missing a button, or just for some reason they're not perfect. And rather than discarding them or getting rid of them or using the fabric for something else, what I would like to do is to fix them and to get them back into my wardrobe. And this is the same for my clothes and my husband's clothes, but also some of the clothes that I've previously made for myself. So one of the examples that I've used quite a lot is I made myself some pyjama trousers maybe 2 years ago now, year and a bit, I think it was 2023. And I made these pyjama trousers using a pattern, mind you, and they are so big that the gather around the top is so, it doesn't look great, and I knew that at the time, but I thought that I would be able to deal with it. However, the longer I've had them, I have not worn them since I filmed the video, which is a big shame because they didn't take me a long time, but they did take time to make, and it's material that's just sat in my closet at the moment doing nothing. And it's just a real shame because I actually love the material that they were made with. So if I were to make them more fitted, I would wear them more and they'd be more comfortable. So that's just one example of something that I will be fixing this year. The same with, I've got a skirt that would be beautiful in design. However, because the fabric is a thicker canvas, it sticks out. It looks like a cartoon character sort of skirt where it's triangular, unfortunately. So one way that I could fix that is to round it so that it's more fitted and it's more flattering. Again, if for whatever reason I can't fix some of the garments, I will look at other ways of repurposing the fabric, or I don't know, I'll make it work. So yeah, that's a lot of my plans for sort of January and the new year. As I said, I'm going to keep up with the videos every week. I'm back working my healthcare job on a Monday and a Tuesday. So those days will be busier, but obviously I can focus on my business on the 3 days that are remaining. So that will be, hopefully, touch wood, fairly easy to keep on top of. So that will involve Etsy, making new projects and listing a lot of things, potentially on websites such as Vinted, so that I can sort of move stock a bit quicker. And the last update that I have, before I release this video, I will be doing a sale on my Etsy shop. So I haven't quite decided how much of a discount I will give. It will be at least 10%, but I will look at sort of profit margins before I decide exactly how much to give and how generous I'm feeling as well. I've obviously made a lot of project bags in 2024, and therefore it would be nice to sort of move some older stock. I know that when I had my sale last year for tote bags, they were shifted really quickly, which was great. And it's really nice to feel as though a lot of my project bags and stock is sort of going out to people who will enjoy it and love it, rather than having it sat on a shelf here. I don't want to sign myself up for too much because I know how that goes, but I will also be trying to post more on Instagram and Facebook. One of the reasons that I don't post as much on Instagram, and I'm sure that I've said this before, is because I feel as though it has to be perfect before I upload it. Which is good in concept. It needs to be the right image and the right description. It needs to be relevant to the business, and it needs to sort of have a point, if that makes sense. But in search of being perfect, I'm not posting anything, which I would argue it's best to have something that's not perfect than nothing at all, because I go for months without posting a lot, and that's not great for business either. So I would rather have something that's relevant to crochet or sewing, or something semi-relevant to my business, rather than having something that's perfect and sort of, I have a plan, I know exactly how it's going to go, etc. So keep a lookout for my Instagram page, and I will hopefully be uploading more about my current works in progress and little things around the office or to do with my day that have made me smile and hopefully can make you smile a little bit as well. So after that catch up, let's get into the projects. So if you haven't seen my podcast before, I go over the different crochet projects that I've done, how much yarn I've used, what yarn I've used, what the pattern was, and any thoughts I have around them. Some of them I don't have with me. A lot of them, to be fair, I don't have anymore because they were for other people. So I will be popping some footage in so that you can still see it. If I haven't got any footage, I will have a picture to show you instead. So the first project I finished in December were some more paper chains. So I finished these on the 4th of December. Paper chains I've made a lot of. It's a pattern by, bear with. So the pattern is from My Poppet. It is a simple pattern, but I think it looks great. It is, in basic, crocheting a rectangle. You make it quite long, and then the more you make, the more you can attach, and it looks like a paper chain, you know, where you staple them all together. I think it's quite an old-fashioned decoration maybe, but I think they look great. So I was scrap busting with making some more, and I have attached them to my existing paper chains, and they're all along my front room now, and I think they look great. They're very colourful, so when I started I was trying to make sure that they were all cotton and that they were all similar colours so that they all really went. Now it's really scrappy, but I think it still looks great. It adds to the effect, I'd like to say. But if I make many more, I will have to do it around the rest of the room as well, which I'm not sure if my husband would love that. Just gonna have some more coffee. So with that project, as I said, I used a lot of scraps, so acrylic, cotton. A lot of them were joined together in sort of a magic ball because that's just how they were. I had a big ball of yarn that I had got from Hobbycraft at some point. It's acrylic. I really am not a fan of it, but I've used it in the paper chain so that I can get rid of it. I don't like it because there's sort of a thread that's running parallel to the yarn, so as you're crocheting you have to slide the yarn across so that it's taut, and then you just end up with a load of sort of a knot of yarn at the end of it that's attached to this thread, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you haven't worked with similar yarn before, and I think that's a great thing. Keep it that way. So if I didn't say before, I use 136 grams and I got rid of quite a lot of yarn, which was great. The next is probably another sort of old schooly idea. It is a pattern by Crochet Spot and it's called the Modern Bag Saver. Me and my partner often forget to take reusable carrier bags to shops. Sometimes when we go to have takeaways, or if we go to the local shop, they give us a plastic bag. So we had a bundle of plastic bags in the bottom of our cupboard, and every time you'd open the door, half of them would fall out, so you'd forever be sort of pushing back these plastic bags. And I kept saying to myself that we needed to get a plastic bag organiser. I used to have one when I was younger. My dad used to have one, and I just always remember it being so useful. Every time you needed a bag, you knew exactly where they were, and they were really easy to get as well. So it's a sausage shape. It's got a hole at the top to put your plastic bags in, and it's got a hole at the bottom to take one at a time. I used this pattern because it looked really easy and it was sort of exactly what I wanted, and it was free as well. What I like about it is the gaps in it, so that you can see if there's any plastic bags in there. Obviously you can feel it, but you can see if any get stuck as well. So you can sort of reach in there and pull them out, and it's just a bit nicer, I think, than having one that's covered, personally. The yarn that I used was Knits Recycled in pink, which is made from recycled plastic bottles, which is great. Obviously we are trying to reuse all the plastic bags, so that is a nice way of storing them. And it was an 100-gram ball. I used most of it. I think I've probably got a scrap that's less than 5 grams left, which I will use for something. I'm not quite sure yet what it will be, but it will be something. So the pattern called for bulky yarn. The Knits Recycled yarn is by Wendy, and it is 100% recycled bottles / polyester. It's pink in colour, but it also has speckles of various different colours as well. The pattern was fairly easy to understand. I will say that there were some weird symbols in there, which I don't know if it's just the way that my computer has read the links, that it's just a bit off. But that was a little bit confusing, because rather than being, for example, round 1, round 2, round 3, it had some random symbols in there which didn't make sense, and it made it just a little bit more difficult to keep up with where exactly you were. The pattern is online, so it's on a web link that you sort of keep up with, if that makes sense. The pattern was really good. The only thing that I did change was the middle part. So the way I understood the pattern, and again I did this pattern about a month ago, so I don't have the best memory. I remember that the pattern called for 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and as I was doing that, the chain ones, maybe it was due to the yarn I was using, it was, rather than being sausage shaped, it was going in at the middle. I thought that I would just carry on and see how it went until I got to the top. And when I went to put the bags in, before I finished it off, it wouldn't really fit a lot of them in, which defeats the point of having it. So the way I got around this was to chain 2 in between each stitch. So that just made it a little bit more flexible and a little bit more bulky. So it doesn't look perfect. We have used it. I've stuffed it with all of the bags. As I said, it's not perfect, but it is functional, and that's the main thing that I wanted it to be. The yarn was fine to use. It feels a bit weird on your fingers as you're crocheting. It feels a little bit, I don't really know how to describe it. You can feel that it's not that soft. So I probably wouldn't want to make something that's wearable with it, but maybe you would. And as I said, I nearly finished the whole ball, so that's one less lot of yarn in my stash. So this is the first one I've made. I haven't sewn in the ends, but you will see, ignore the phallic look of it. You will see that it's very tight in the middle where the bags go, and it's not long enough. So I'm going to, rather than redoing all of it, I am going to cut it back here because I feel like this is the right size. I'm going to cut it along here, I think, rip the yarn back and then restart. I feel like it gets smaller near the bottom though. That still looks very tight. Yeah, and then restart it from there. The next thing that I made were some robins. I had a kit that I had bought a few years ago to make some little robins. So I did do a video about the robins, so if you wanted any more information or to see the process or hear my explicit feedback or anything like that, please have a look at the video. But briefly, the robins that I made were made round. You added the tummy to one of the last rounds so that it was already attached. You crocheted a little beak and added some eyes and some wings and a tail and embroidered some little feet on, and it was a hanging decoration. So the kit could make 4 robins. I made 4 and I only used half of the yarn. So the other half of the yarn is going to go to my mother-in-law because she would quite like to make some robins. So hopefully she has a nice time. The kit itself was really good. As I said, there was one instruction that I got confused about, but I will be sending feedback to the lady who made the kit just so that she can rectify that if it hasn't been rectified already. As I said, I did buy it a few years ago though, so she might already have considered this. She might have already got the feedback, but as I said, I will be feeding that back. The kit was by Woolly Chic, and it was about £15 when I bought it. So to make 4 robins and still have some left over is really, really good. I would probably buy a kit from her again. As I said, it was really good. It was really clear. The only thing I would say is it would help to have a stitch marker, but I also feel that that is the same with a lot of different makers. When there's an amigurumi kit, personally I use stitch markers so that I can see the start and the finish of the rounds. But I don't feel as though there's a lot of kits that do actually include stitch markers. All you would need is 1 or 2 as well. So I think that's something that I will probably be passing on to a few people. I know that when I went to a recent Toft event, which I will speak about in a bit, Kerry, who is the owner of Toft, did say that she prefers to use yarn and tuck that up every round because you get a straighter line as opposed to if you're using a stitch marker where it tends to go diagonally as you're marking each of the stitches. So she said it's more accurate. Again, I think it would be quite helpful that if this is a technique that is going to be used, it would probably be quite helpful to have a guide on how to do that. But then again, I've never searched for a guide, so maybe I'm just making it a bit more complicated than it needs to be. But yes, that's one of the only things that I would say. And as I said, one of the instructions wasn't clear to me, so I did adapt that slightly. But I would be interested to see how my mother-in-law understands the instructions, because it might be that it's just my understanding and not a fault with the pattern, which is totally possible. So 2 of the robins were gifted. One was given to my nan and one was given to my auntie, and the other 2 are hung in my front room. And the reason that these were quite special to myself and my family is because they are seen as special birds. And I mean that by they are seen to be quite lucky and quite sentimental. They have a meaning behind them. I feel like there's quite a few families who have something little that's meaningful to them. So one thing that I've noticed is a lot of people see feathers as a sign of loved ones. So for my family, it is robins that are seen to be a sign from a loved one. So that's why they're quite special. After a short break, I am back. I just had to do some washing. So the next project that I finished was a scarf for my husband's auntie. So long story short, my husband's auntie gave me a ball of yarn, and she said that she'd been trying to make herself a scarf, but she just struggled with knitting, so she gave up in the end and gave it to me. I was going to make something for myself, and then I thought she'd bought this yarn specifically for herself to make a scarf with, so it would be really nice if I could make her a scarf with it for Christmas. No, it wasn't for Christmas, sorry, it was for her birthday that is in late December. So I made the scarf, I made a video on it as well. A lot of trial and error, and I wrapped that up and waited until it was her birthday to give it to her. But then my husband has another auntie whose birthday is in October, and I don't think we'd really seen her since her birthday, and I bought yarn that was just her colour, so I decided to make her a scarf as well so that they had something matching. And I know that his auntie had a matching hat because I'd made it for her a few years earlier. I think it was during COVID actually. So I made a scarf for her. After I finished the scarf, I realised it wasn't very long. Instead of being a long scarf like I was hoping it would be, it was quite chunky, but it had a button on one side so that you could connect them. They sort of met in the middle. So it was more of a neck warmer than a scarf, I guess. In an ideal world, I would have made it longer. However, I didn't know exactly how long to make it, how many stitches to make it, sorry, because I wasn't using a pattern, I was just freehanding it. So I didn't know how long to make it, how wide to make it, sorry, so that I would have a long enough scarf without it being too short. I think realistically, because the yarn was Aran, it probably wouldn't have been long enough unless I'd have made it quite thin, which personally I'm not a fan of thin scarves, but maybe his auntie would have been. So it was an okay project. I wish it would have gone better, but it didn't, so there we go. The yarn I used was Wool and the Gang, and it was called Crazy Sexy Wool. It was Aran weight, and it was Dusty Aubergine. So it was, the yarn itself, I used 200 grams of it, so I used the whole ball. I really wasn't a fan of it. So the yarn was more like roving, and again, I don't have any background knowledge on Wool and the Gang or anything like that. So maybe this was obvious to everyone except myself. Because it was roving, it was quite difficult for it, well, because it was roving, I found that it felted quite a lot. So as I was crocheting up the scarf and just using single crochet or double crochet, I can't quite remember, I think it was single crochet, the yarn at some points would split. So you'd have like the end of one bit of roving sticking out. So you'd crochet and you'd just have this fluff sticking out periodically that it just made it look as though it wasn't new, which there's no problem in gifting secondhand because I do that quite often, but it just didn't look good at all. So I had to go around with scissors and cut all of the bits of hair off afterwards. So that wasn't great. Hopefully she enjoys it. I did try and show her how to put it on, but it's really tricky to know how to put it on unless you're wearing it, if that makes sense. So to teach someone how to do it when you're not wearing it is a bit difficult, but when you're wearing it, it's hopefully quite easy. The only thing I wonder is whether she has sensitivities to wool. So hopefully she doesn't, but if she does, I wouldn't be overly heartbroken if she didn't wear it or she gave it away to someone or gave it to a charity shop. I wouldn't be overly upset. I wouldn't be heartbroken because, as I said, it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. But it was really difficult to pull back as well. So I tried to pull back the scarf once I realised it wasn't going to be long enough. And it just started, the yarn started separating, which isn't great. So as I said, I just ended up leaving it how it was, just carried on. But yeah, that was a shame, but that was 200 grams used as well, and it went straight into my stash and straight out again, which was really good as well. So I made that on the 19th of December, or around the 19th. The next project, it's sort of one, sort of two projects. So the next project I have finished is a Hippo amigurumi toy. It is a Knitty Critters kit that was bought by a daughter of my co-worker. I have filmed a video about this and I will be releasing at some point when there's a gap in my schedule. But to go into the details now, the kit was called Pippapotomus, which is Pippa the hippopotamus, I guess. So the yarn was using chenille, which I must admit I was not looking forward to because I really don't like chenille yarn. I've used it before and I got really confused about where my stitches were meant to go. Keeping count of them was really difficult. You have to, rather than being able to count the V's as you're going round, you have to sort of feel for holes with your hook and just hope that it's going well. So it did involve a lot of counting because I was constantly making sure that I was going into all of the right holes so that I was keeping the correct amount of stitches. It didn't take me long at all. Well, I say it didn't take me long at all. Again, if you've watched this show before, you'll know that, this podcast even, you'll know that I have a skill of severely underestimating how long things take me. So I remembered it was only going to be an hour, but it didn't take me an hour. It took me in total 4.5 hours for this and the next project I'm going to talk about as well. So as I said, it was a colleague's daughter that asked me to do this for her. So she gave me the kit, I've finished it. I used 150 grams of the yarn out of 300 grams of yarn. So technically I have enough for a second one. The kit itself wasn't complicated. I didn't have to pull anything back. The ears I didn't do perfectly. Rather than just talking, I will show you. So this is the finished Hippo. So he's really cute. This is sort of not faux fur, but it's a beautiful colour. So this is the finished Hippo. So the instructions were fairly clear. There were a few that I got confused on. Again, I'll go into those in more detail in a different video. But to summarise it, I struggled because it would start a lot of the instructions off by saying make a magic circle and then chain 3. So that would tell me that it's just a slip stitch rather than a magic circle. So those were the only things that confused me, and then sometimes it would say a magic circle and it would be treated as one, but other times it would be a magic circle and you'd just use it as a not slip stitch, a chain, So that confused me, but apart from that, it was good. So he's fairly cute, or she's fairly cute. The ears I didn't do perfectly. Again, I got confused with the instructions, but I think they're still cute. And the eyes, I didn't know exactly where to position the eyebrows, because the eyebrows are only over sort of a third of the eye. So, but I followed the box, and that's sort of where it showed me to put them. So yeah, that's done. As I said, that took 150 grams of yarn. This was finished on the 23rd of December. The yarn that was in the kit, I don't know whether this is available elsewhere or whether it's just in these kits, but it's called Hello Love. It's 100% polyester yarn, super bulky, although I wouldn't necessarily define that as super bulky, but that's what it's designed itself as. Yeah, she obviously hasn't received it yet. I'm waiting for my colleague to confirm when she's able to pick it up. Again, in terms of yarn, I don't know whether this will be added to my stash because it's not mine. So I'm not going to count this as being added to my stash, because again, it might be that her daughter wants it back, in which case it doesn't need to go in my stash, which is woohoo, great. And then the next project, so yes, I would, if I felt a need to, I would probably make some more. Because I've got so many crochet kits at the moment, I probably wouldn't buy another kit, but in the future I definitely would buy a kit from them, because the instructions were very clear, fairly clear, now that I understand them, and it was quite relatively quick to do, so yes. And then the second thing that I made for him, again as requested by my colleague, she had bought 2 lots of yarn. This is, I believe, James C. Brett Fluttery yarn. You've got 2 colours, so light pink and light beige, I guess. And she wanted an accessory made for the hippo, of course. So I just made this little blanket. I haven't blocked it because it doesn't need to be. It's just a simple granny square. And I've added tassels to the end. And that just sits on his back. I could have made it longer, but I'm going to be honest and say I was a bit tired of doing projects for other people. And I'd already added the tassels. I think that it's quite cute. I think because of the size of the hippo, it would be difficult to make it bigger unless I just added to the sides to make it longer. But I've just done that in differing. So it starts with brown, brown, pink, brown, pink, brown, pink. And that's the other 2 projects. And then the last one I have got, that is, sorry, for the blanket I used 35 grams, and as I said, it's just a standard granny square, so no pattern used. I just kept going until it was big enough. One big project that I did forget to talk about is just this blanket that you're going to see in a second. The pattern I used was by Lindsay Noon's Curate Crochet box, or Lottie and Albert. It is the Rainbow Chunky blanket. I did do a separate video on this, hence why I forgot to film a proper video, but you will see it in all of its glory with all of the beautiful pom-poms on the side. I used 6 different colours. Again, I go into the exact colours in the video specifically for this blanket, and I used 1,200 grams of yarn in total. It's acrylic and it is a present for my sister. And then the last project is, there is a finished project, but it's also a work in progress. So the finished, so on the 13th of December, on my birthday, I went to the Natural History Museum for a Toft crocheting event. So the project was to make Charles Darwin. Again, I have got a separate video on this. And whilst I was there, I finished a part of Charles Darwin. So this is an accessory, but I'm going to count him as a finished project as well. So Charles Darwin had a pet octopus, and this is the one that I crocheted. So I don't know how much yarn I used because I didn't use yarn. For this project, it was using UMC embroidery thread. So this is the finished octopus. So you've got his two eyes and obviously his tentacles. And he is so cute. So he's just kept in his little jar. There's a way to position him so that you can still see his eyes. He's just kept in his little jar all the time. And once he is finished, he will be displayed with Charles Darwin. So this took me the session, so about 2 hours, I guess. An hour and a half maybe, I'm not entirely sure. But it took me longer because I got confused with the instructions. Because I'm sure if you've followed patterns before, you will be aware that different people write things differently. So in this pattern, it said something along the lines of DC2, 2 in next stitch. That's made up, but just say, for example, that is what it was. I read it as 2 double crochets in 1 stitch, and then the next one is 2 double crochets again, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people do 1 DC, 2 DC in next stitch. I got it confused, so I kept having to rip it back and redo it. And because I'm a little bit stubborn, and because I thought that everyone else had made a lot of Toft toys and therefore knew what they were doing, I didn't feel entirely comfortable asking what it meant, because it felt like such a basic thing that I was getting confused with. If I'd have just asked at the start, then it would have saved me quite a lot of time, and it wouldn't have been embarrassing really. As I said, everyone writes their patterns differently, so it's just one of those things. But yeah, so that's why there was a delay in it. But I finished it now, so that's great. Which leads me on to my work in progress. One thing I will just mention about Toft patterns is that apparently they go up or down in every size of yarn. So although a pattern might have been written, in this case, for using embroidery thread, it can scale up to chunky or Aran or, you know, super bulky if you want to, and it should still work out the same. So because the pattern was really easy, I might actually make some more octopuses or octopi, I'm not sure which one's right. I might make some more because it's great at using stash and they're really cute as well. So, and I'd be really interested to see how it works up in different yarns. So yeah. Anyway, on to my next work in progress. So as I said, the event that I went to was to make Charles Darwin. Now I don't know where I've put the pattern. Aha. So this is the pattern that was exclusive to the event. I think it was put online for a little while, but it sold out super quickly. You can't really see much of a contrast in his clothes. The top is black or dark grey and the trousers are brown. It's quite hard to see when I'm looking at it as well, when it's not on the camera, but there is a difference. He's not just wearing all black. His shoes are black with brown laces as well. So this is my current Charles Darwin. So I've done the body, so I've done his trousers, I've done the belt, and you've got the belt loops there as well. I've done his arms. I've done his arms and his hands. His hands were really fiddly to do. They weren't difficult directions, but they were fiddly, which made them quite difficult. So they're not perfect by any means, but I'm really happy with them. And then I've done the yarn around the edge for his sleeve cuff and the top of his shirt to show the difference in it. Don't know if it's showing up really on camera. And then I've done his head as well. So I haven't stuffed him too much because I didn't want his head to be wobbly. I was thinking if his head does go wobbly at some point, obviously with continued use or after I add the hair, I am probably going to add some wire down his body just to keep him stabilised a little bit more. But I've done his nose and his eyes. And just look at his tiny little ears, they're so cute. I'm really happy. I would say that the top of his head is quite obvious where I've decreased. I'm not sure if all of them look that obvious, but he will be wearing a hat hopefully. And again, it's the first doll that I've created, so it's not going to be perfect, but I'm still really, really proud of him so far, and he's not even finished. So I think the belt and the cuffs come later on, and the eyes and the nose come later on in the pattern. But it was making me a bit sad just having a plain doll. So I have added those little details, just firstly because it's really easy to do. To make the belt is really simple, so it took me sort of 5-10 minutes, if that. Same as the cuffs, they were really easy, and it's a detail that I can do, and it's not too taxing as well. I think sometimes with patterns where you're doing amigurumi and you have to concentrate all the time, it can be a little bit taxing to pay attention that much and count that long, especially if you want to watch a program or something and you just know that you've got to continue counting. It's just a bit, for me, it's not the most fun thing. One thing I will say is that the arms, I'm not sure exactly how to attach the arms. So I did attach them before and they were too high. So now I think they're at a better position. They are made to be longer than the body. That's just the design of them. But yeah, they look fine on camera, to be honest. They're not perfect again, but they're perfect enough for me. And that's his back. So the next major thing that I need to make are his legs. They will take a bit of concentration again, just counting the rounds. After the legs, I believe it's time to start making his waistcoat. He also has a hat and I don't know if it's called a cape, but just adding all the accessories, I guess. So you make him I need to make his legs, his shoes, his cape, his waistcoat, his hat, and then add his hair and his beard as well as other things that I need to do, of course. So yeah, he's really good. He's probably around halfway done now, nearly halfway done. Say 45% done, maybe. So yes, so he's the one that I really want to be finished by the end of January, just because I want to display him. I need to find somewhere good to put him as well, and I would just love to have him done so that I can look at him and just marvel at how great he is, and also my skills are at crocheting. It's a project that I'm going to be really proud of, I know that for a fact. He is made using the Toft yarn, and it's DK, so it's 100% wool, and it is using a size 3 hook. So he's not taking too long to do-ish. It takes a lot of concentration. So he's one that I will get to making in the evenings again, weekends, so that I can just keep on top of the counting and the rounds, etc. And apart from Charles Darwin, my Toft toy, I haven't got any other works in progress. What I did say at the beginning of this video, and what I still agree with now, like an hour later, is that I will try to fix a project every day. So that means either clothing items that are missing a button or need to have a hole sewed up or anything like that, or clothing projects that I've made that I just need to adjust because they don't fit perfectly. I'm going to try and keep on top of my to fix pile and regularly complete items in there, just so that I can get back to wearing them. Again, this is for my husband's clothes as well, so that he can get back to wearing them as well. So I have got like a drawer full at the moment, and some more bulkier bits that don't fit into a drawer. So those will be one of my main focuses. The other focus is to make a wearable by the end of the month. So I will probably make a sewing project. However, I may start a new crochet project depending on my availability and whether I finish Charles Darwin. To be completely honest, I will probably be tired of crocheting by the time I finished him, so it would probably be nice to have a sewing project to do instead. Again, thinking out loud, what I might do is just focus on my fixing pile, hopefully get everything fixed that I can do, and then next month I can work on more dresses and skirts and things, but again, we will see. So apart from that, I don't think that I have anything else for you. As I said, next Saturday I will be releasing a video about how my year's stash down has gone. My stash down was a challenge that I set for myself to try and get through a certain amount of my yarn stash. So I'll be doing the sum up year long video. I'll be recording it today, and I will edit and release it ready for next Saturday. Thank you very much for watching this video. I know that I've done quite a lot this month, so thank you very much for watching to the end if you're still here. If you have anything to add, please add a comment below, and I would be more than happy to chat to you or answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, take care and happy 2025. Bye.